to the Dignity Dialogue with your host, Joe Kiedinger.
All right, another Dignity Dialogue. I am Joe Kiedinger, and I have a very special guest today, as all of our guests are super special, but this one is also super special. Brighid Riordan, everyone. She is the CEO of Cellcom. And Brighid, for our listeners who are not in the Wisconsin market or surrounding it, why don't you give us a little overview of Cellcom?
Sure. Well, we are a telecom company. We are evolving to what I want to refer to as a technology company, because telecom seems a little outdated. But we've been around since 1910, started as a local telephone company, and our big increase was when we went into the wireless business back in 1987. And now we provide wireless services. Really anything that has to do with connectivity is what we do. So
it's amazing. Now, for those of you who have listened to other podcasts, we talk about the generational motivation and drive. Things that are passed from generation to generation, and certainly your story and your ancestors. I think it's a brilliant story to talk about just how it started and how old your company is, because people would think a cell phone company, oh, they're probably, 80s, I get that. But you have so much more decades behind that. So kind of explain the evolution.
Yeah, it's sometimes it's a lot to live up to. So we started in 1910 in a small village that is a little bit west of Greenbay. And it was a Polish settlement. And the company started as Pulaski Merchants and Farmers Telephone Company, incorporated March 10th of 1910. The village was actually incorporated a month later.
Oh, wow.
On April 9th, 1910, which is fascinating to me. But, back in that time, so the telephone had been invented, but it was kind of a slow growth. I mean, really everything was telephone poles and wires, so it's not like everybody all of a sudden had a phone. So in Pulaski, in order for the businessmen to talk to the farmers had to hitch up the horses and come into town. I mean, it was not an easy process. Right. And they said, hey, we could probably make this go faster if we had a telephone. So
I heard about this invention.
So that, and it's fascinating to me. As I was telling you, we have the original minutes from back in 1910 all the way to today. And
crazy.
Yeah, these Polish men were so entrepreneurial. I mean, they started like tons of businesses, really. I mean, when you're reading it, they're involved in everything. But my great-grandparents were nearby, and they actually had brought electricity to Pulaski through the Badger Utility Company. And they ended up selling that business shortly after they finished that project. And then they ended up buying stock in this telephone company. And so as I look back, I kind of go, like, how did we get here? And I think about that, they kind of flipped a business in my mind. And did they mean to keep the telephone company? I don't know.
Because electricity seemed to be going pretty well at the time.
Right. But the Great Depression came, and, there was these stories about, if we fall below 300 customers, we'll sell. They definitely fell below 300 customers. Maybe they couldn't sell. I don't know. But there's a lot of stories of perseverance in that 113-year history. But and the other thing that I didn't mention is, so when my great-grandparents then became majority owners and then they were asked to run the company, it was my great-grandmother who ran the company. And
really?
And this is in the 1920s.
Right.
That didn't happen.
No.
So Florence was who she was. She's kind of my ghost mentor. I always think of her like, I mean, what a force she was. And they credit her in the minutes for kind of saving the company through tough times. And but she was the one that did it. And my great grandfather actually sold we always say overalls, but it was overalls, I think, in moonshine to the lumberjacks up north. So he was even gone most of the time. He was even out. But so anyway, so
he had a side hustle.
Yeah, that's what they did. That's what they did back in those days. So anyway, when I talk about, in our industry now, we are in such a disruptive, difficult time. The economy is a difficult time. There's so much challenge. And it's very easy for me to look back at our company and look at all the challenges we've overcome. Mm-hmm. You talk about persistence. I don't know if it's Irish stubbornness or what it is. It's grit. Right. Yeah. So it's a fascinating history. And my grandfather worked for the association because the company was very small. My great uncle was the next one that ran it. And then my dad and my uncle got involved, as well as my other aunt and my other uncle. And
so this is you're the third generation or the fourth generation? The fourth generation.
There's so few companies that make it to the fourth generation.
Oh,
it's a minuscule of a fraction. And
what's the percentage? You must have looked it up.
I have looked it up, but it's hard. It's hard to, it's like 0.5 companies or something make it to 100 years old.
Okay.
So you think about it's a subset of a subset of a subset.
Right.
They can't even track it because the businesses are gone. So it's like, it's almost a miracle, Joe.
I think just back in those days, just one little, they're an entrepreneur, they're into everything. I'm like, when there's really nothing, you can be in everything.
True.
You know what I mean? Like they need groceries. Well, let's have a grocery store. That's a very good point. Like the basic needs back then were being established if the town wasn't even established yet. So I don't know, that was just a thought that popped in my head. Yeah. So we're talking about obviously dignity. That's our forefront and the anchor of our program. Bridge and I were just talking about her Dignify snapshot. She took her snapshot and she's talking to me about it. And we met at a leadership. You were in a master's program, right?
Yep.
And I was a guest presenter.
Yep.
And 8 years ago-ish, we've tried to figure out that you completed this. And you go, oh, I forgot all about that. And as we're reading through her top 5 dignity traits, which are what? Optimistic, curious, persistent, thoughtful, and born leader. She's like, yep, that's me. And you described yourself as not typical, not really fitting into the mold of a CEO. Yep. And quite honestly, I find that quite refreshing. and I think I'd like to travel to that topic because I do think people put themselves in a box where they say, I can't do this. I'm not the typical thing. I couldn't do that because I don't wear a suit. I don't, that's a silly one, but talk about that because I think we limit ourselves. I know we limit ourselves as people when you have what is a CEO? Who cares? And do you? So talk about that journey.
Yeah, I think I was lucky because I wouldn't have said this before, but I feel like I haven't fit in most of my life. I have strange ideas. I'm reading too much and, all these kind of things. But that's been a really valuable experience to have. When I was asked to be CEO, about a year and a quarter ago, I think I was able to take that and go, especially, you talk about the generation. So I'm 4th generation. My dad was a CEO before. And I always tell people, you walk in with a credibility problem. Mm-hmm. You have it written on your forehead.
Right.
And so but I think the fact that I spent so much time not following the flow and not following the crowd. And my mother was very big about, the beat of a different drummer, all that kind of stuff. Allowed me to say, you know what, here's what I got. This is who I am. This is what I can do. I can't do this by myself. Mm-hmm. I need each of you to bring your best every day. I'm going to humble myself to you. I'm going to show you who I am exactly, truthfully, transparently. And we're going to figure this out together. And it allows me to ask questions. I never am ashamed. People will tell you, a lot of times I'll be like, I don't get it. And the thing is that in a room, so when you have your CEO going, I don't get what?
Oh, like you were saying a subject comes up.
Well, when they're talking about what they want to do or anything, I will ask any question. Why? Why would we do? Why would we do this? most people keep those questions in their head, and even if they're thinking them, but you don't get to real conversations until you pass through all here's the song and dance. Here's what I did to make it look good. Here's what I did to make this seem like it'll work or something. It's not that people haven't thought it through, but a lot of times we're doing things as a production. And I am so anti-production. Like I told you, like I don't dress the part, and I've wondered about that. I don't have the spouse to take to all the events. But I'm very comfortable with that, and that allows me to be the person that I was born to be. You talk about this dignity and believing in this real you.
Yeah.
And I don't have a hard time with that, and I hope that I encourage others to do that. That's really my goal.
Well, you certainly have been practicing that, it sounds like, your whole life.
Yeah.
The importance of, you said, be your authentic self. And now, we were raised in generations, okay, that was fake it to make it.
Yep.
Right? You stand in and you go, this is how it is, right? That next style of management. Maybe your father was that way, maybe uncle. You've seen generations, right? Mm-hmm. Would you say it's a family, would you say you've changed that, or no, that's how my generations led that you know of?
I think there's a lot of, I believe there's a lot of authentic leaders in my family. Mm-hmm. And I think that, my dad, while he's kind of the archetype of a CEO, really, truly, he's also very unusual for a CEO. His humanity and his being himself. The part that if anything I struggled with as far as being myself, what I will say is I struggled being a female as a leader. In my business, it's men. I go to some conferences where not as much today, but there's only men. I mean, there's brochures where the conference attendees are only men. And so when I got into business when I was younger, I felt that I had to take on male characteristics in order to be credible. But I think my family has really pushed for authenticity and allowed that.
Was there a defining point for you, being a female in a male-dominated industry? Because I think that's obviously, I don't know what that's like, obviously. But did you have this light bulb that went on, or was it just a gradual acceptance of just stepping into it, or was it just kind of back there, but you never really focused on it?
I've always really, even since I was young, I really have rejected stereotypes for males and females. Even in my family, again, part of this is generational. Mm-hmm. The boys had to do the outside work. I had to cook dinner. I had to. Poor me. Right. But I'm like, I don't want to do that. I want to do the outside work.
Okay.
And I mean, I remember I was given the chore of, you need to make dinner once a week for the family. And I was so mad about it that I made a horrible dinner that my dad hated.
How old are you?
Oh, I was probably 14, 15, 16.
Do you remember what the meal was? Now I'm curious.
It was like hamburger with no seasonings, and I think like noodles or something. It was just. You
purposefully made it.
I purposefully made it horrible, but I did it with flair. It was like, all right, here we go. And I remember my daddy. I was the only one I was asked to make. After that, no more. So I always have kind of had this sense of justice and, this female male thing. But I think, you just have to own it at some point. And part of it too, even being part of a family business, I remember a lot of times I was like, I have to show them. I have to prove myself that and it doesn't matter how much you try. Some people are still going to say, she was born with a silver spoon in her mouth. And you know what? I don't care. And the reason, once I got past that, I don't care. All that does is holds me back from building up good in the world.
Yeah.
I'm holding myself back.
Yep.
That's a waste of time.
Yeah.
People can think that if they want. That's fine by me. I'm going to keep doing what I'm doing, and And also bringing my femininity to work. I had mentors that, especially one mentor, where we would actually coach each other after meetings.
Okay.
I heard you say this. When you were saying this, you were basically discounting your own words. Oh, was I? I didn't notice. So really kind of that sort of thing, building each other up, watching out for each other is really important.
Well, we've on the road to discovering dignity, and this goes to what you were talking about, is we defend our worthiness at all costs, because the definition of dignity is to be worthy of honor and respect, which you already are. We teach people to say, we say, don't take the bait. Like if you think your dignity is being violated by someone, it might be fiction. Like it might be your own insecurities deciding that this is a violation, when it's really a question they're asking or just an innocent misunderstanding. And so we defend our worthiness at all costs. So what you described there is very common with all human beings, right? Oh, I'm the daughter of the family, my dad's CEO, and what are they going to think? Well, what you're really saying is, am I worthy? Will they deem me worthy? And only you can decide that.
Right.
You already are. Now what? Like we all are. Now what? What are you going to do now? We work with teenagers. We do some work in the schools, and I had this. My girls are in show choir. Oh. This is a few years ago at De Pere, and we had all these. So one of my daughters at the time was a freshman, one was a junior, and April, who often co-hosts with me in the show, she's amazing with dignity and teenagers. So when they asked me to do this, because my daughters are in here, we're having this retreat, right? And we're all going to be there and do something with, have Dignify. I don't care what you guys do, but you have the whole day. And I go, April, this is not my space. You've been working with teenagers your whole life, and music and all this stuff. So she goes, okay, let's do this. And we did this exercise that April just kind of came up with on a whim, but she talked about worthiness to the teens. And we started it with Dignify. We went down this vulnerability trail that she choreographed. The first was we all sang together because we're all musicians. So that was fun. Then we all learned about each other. They had these families, like you're a family of 6, like within the choir, so you can all get to know. So our freshmen, juniors, seniors are all mixed. And we went through this exercise, and they sat and they did a Dignify introduction, and they learned about each other's dignity. And then she went a little deeper and said, why don't you share with your team something that, you're most proud of in your life and why? And then they had all that. And of course, there were breaks and all this stuff. But what she led them to was a discussion of worthiness. And this was a very powerful moment. We went into a separate room that was like no risers, because you're in a quiet room with risers. It was a flat floor. It was a band hall. And she had all the children lie on their stomach. You ever play thumbs up in school where you put your head on your desk and you go, and you put your thumb up and someone taps your thumb down? You didn't do that, Pulaski? Thumbs up, man. That was like my favorite game. Anyway, she has everyone lying on their stomach, and they said, do not look. If you look, we will ask you to leave. Oh, this is serious, what I'm about to ask you. Now, this is towards the end of the afternoon. Now we're walking them down vulnerability. You're talking about worthiness, right? Mm-hmm. I wasn't sure the question she was going to ask, but she said, Joe, go up to the board and tally the following. I'll ask the question, Joe, you tally it and give me a count. Because they're all on the ground, and I'm counting thumbs up. And she would throw a question saying, like, she started really, how many people in this room are experiencing divorced or fighting parents? Raise your thumb. And we're counting. And let's just say there's 50 kids on the floor. I'm like, 38 or whatever the number was, big number. How many of you you struggle with your body image? Out of 50, 35,
At least.
And at this point, I don't know where my daughters are, and I didn't want to point them out. Like, I didn't want to know where they were sitting or lying, because there's just all these kids all over the place. Even the teacher was down, and she was so tiny that she looked like one of the kids. So I didn't know who was who. And then she kept going to, how many of you think that maybe life might be better without you here? Oof. She went there. 15. Oh. Right? And then when that was finished, she said, now, And of course, kids are crying. I'm bawling at this point because I'm seeing all this data going, you've got to be kidding me, you know? And then we all huddled around the board, and her point was, which was beautiful, look at this data here, guys. If you don't have each other in this life, there are people struggling just like you in this very room. You are not alone. Mm-hmm. You are not alone, and you are worthy. And then once towards the end, we asked, you know, we lightened up. You get out of that mode. It was very powerful. We go back to the other room, and then there's a transition and so forth. And then I had this inspiration, and I said, okay, so if you felt you were good enough, what would you do differently? Mm-hmm. And I would say, if you felt you were good enough, what would you do differently? They're all standing there, right? I'd probably take dance lessons, you know, or something like this. I go, you're worthy, you're good enough, go take dance lessons. And they would tell what they would have done if they felt everyone wasn't looking at them.
Wow.
Worthiness.
Being a young person is so hard, right?
Sometimes being an old person is hard.
Sometimes being an old person, but it's even harder when you're young. And it's really interesting though, when you're talking about, you know, taking people out of their roles and environment. I mean, basically in that kind of scenario, you stripped them of their performance, their roles. They didn't have to hide. They were just them.
I'm writing that down. Strip me of my performance. I love that.
Yeah. And for me, you know, talking about transformative, I mean, just what this makes me think of, I worked at a summer camp for 4 summers during college, and actually my brothers did, and actually now my kids do, which I never would have saw that coming. But camp for me was a place where the real you is super important. They don't want the pretend you that is hiding behind, I got to try to do this, I got to try to fit in. And I really believe in, you know, summer camp is such a good place because you get to get out of your roles, even the roles you have with your parents.
Right. You
can choose to bring your authentic self. And the other beauty about camp is that as counselors, we would take on different names. My name was Pepper. Okay. By the way. I had 4 reasons why
you
it was
totally look like a pepper.
I know, I do. I don't know why. It should totally fit. But so you are actually, it's interesting because you're taking on this different name, which allows you to be whatever. And so that authenticity is so stressed at camp. It's very stressed. And that also helped me go. I mean, honestly, just yesterday. So this is the next camp director who was camp director with my kids, and was a really good friend of mine, but he would do stuff to just throw people out of their comfort zone and just do things that are strange. So he developed polka pancakes.
Okay.
What are polka? And so I decided, he passed away last 2 years ago, or last year, really young, my age. So I decided I'm going to make that tradition live on, and we're going to have polka pancakes at Cellcom. So he actually did it yesterday for our first annual polka pancakes, and everybody's like, what is this? Why? What is this for? Like with the polka music? And I'm like,
so you just eat pancakes with polka music playing? Mm-hmm. That's polka pancakes?
And the leaders served the pancakes.
Of course, that's awesome.
And yeah, it's just like, it doesn't have to always make sense. Like just bring whatever.
That is so cool. It just doesn't have to make sense. Mm-mm. You know, I just happened to do a speech for Leadership Greenbay. You know, those wonderful organization, and there was like 48 graduates, and they asked me just to do and as I'm sitting there, and they all have to present like this quilt square. It was funny because we're modernizing it. It used to be called like a collage, and now it's a quilt square. I go, that's modernizing it? Like that to me sounds like 1885. Anyway, but just what the journey meant to them, right? And I started to think, oh, this is a different audience than I'm used to maybe talking about. So I want to talk about the journey of stepping into yourself as a leader and having the courageousness, you know, to go after and solving a problem, because that's what they do. They'll find, you know, a garden, they'll build a garden. Like every group has to do something special. And what was really cool is you could tell the bonding that this team went through over the year. Mm-hmm. Because as they're presenting their quilt square with what meant a lot to them, right, throughout the year, they started to tease at one another, like playfully, like Bob, these inside jokes, like, yeah, we're there, blah, blah, blah. And they just start to get super real. And I just know in today's day and age that authenticity is just needed. And what is discouraging is we go back from that powerful experience and we go on our performance kick again.
Yeah. A lot of us do.
How do we, is it practice? I believe it's continuing some of these conversations over time with some vulnerability.
Absolutely.
Putting that in your structure.
Yep. I write a letter to my employees every month-ish. I try to do every month. And writing is my preferred method of communication, so it comes naturally. But I write really personal stuff. And, I try not to be, like cringeworthy, as my kids would say. Like, just don't be cringeworthy, Mom.
Right.
But, people, that really strikes people. Everybody's stories, right? And I think it tells them this is a place to bring your best, to be vulnerable, to open that authenticity. Mm-hmm. What's interesting, Joe, is I spoke to the class at the beginning of the year. I think it's the same class, the Leadership Greenbay.
It just ended.
Yeah, I did in September.
September?
It was the opening retreat. Yeah.
Okay.
So they got 2 doses of authenticity.
Yes.
Authenticity. Oh, God.
Boom, let's break stuff.
See?
We bookended authenticity. But, and what's funny is, I was telling them that you can use, because many of them are young, right? I said, you can use all your experiences, even from your childhood, mm-hmm. to bring it into your work world. And I said, for example, my mother taught me how to sing to improv. From 3 to 9, I would stand in front of the fireplace during cocktail parties, and she would ask people to give me an animal. What's the animal doing? What's its name? Joey sing a song about Henry the Bird building a road. Mm-hmm. And I would have verse and chorus and all this stuff. I said, a part of that is me in front of you today. So some of you could perceive me as over the top, animated. You could even go, how does he sustain that energy? You have no idea the enthusiasm of my mother. You may interpret me as phony at times, which I've heard before. And my whole life, I was put on stage and asked to do stuff that I didn't know what was coming. So I said, how do you think that affects me as a business owner? I can ebb and flow fast, and I can pivot fast, because I may have to sing a song about a bird right now, but I'm going to sing a song about a hippo later. We've got to change.
Lessons. Yeah.
So get this. Go through my whole thing, and any questions? Yeah, we have some question. Last question. You want to sing a song about an animal right now? First time. I've always thought someone's going to push that if I bring that up. I don't bring that story up a lot, but once in a while it comes up. And
what do you do?
And I usually, and I go, yeah, we're out of time. I go, folks, seriously, I haven't done this since I was 9. Let's do it. And so it was, I go, give me an animal, and then dolphin, what's his name? Mitch, and what's Mitch doing? He's a tax accountant. And once I ripped a tune.
Wow.
I can still do it.
It was, wow.
I had chorus, verse,
I'm not
rhyming,
surprised. I'm not surprised.
And they were like, wow. Not using not a parody. I didn't go row your boat melody to, I'm talking original song. And I still got it, Taylor.
Wow.
I still got it.
But that's just so ingrained in you from the very, very beginning.
It's in the fabric, the improv. Yeah. It's in the fabric.
When you spoke to us, was it 8 years ago? That seems so long ago.
I know.
I was so energized by what you I haven't told you this, but I came back to our company and said, we have to talk about servant leadership. That was your discussion. Mm-hmm. And we actually built part of that into our company to this day. Because of you. Yeah.
I didn't know that. You just gave me chills.
I know. I always meant to tell you.
Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah. It was, and I had a lot of classes, but you were very memorable, and just, it's like, this guy gets it. But you got that from way early in your life, which is amazing.
Thank you. Well, and a lot of mentors myself, right? Dave Scogan from Festival Foods introduced me to servant leadership, and James Hunter wrote the book The Servant, because he kept hiring him every year. So I had a front row seat, and became friends with Jim. And I just had really good exposure.
Yeah.
And I had great parents.
Yeah.
That adds a
huge part
lot.
of
They
it.
were a servant leader to me.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, allowed
Same
me to
with
be goofy, allowed me to be, even as an adult, my mother, I just had my 53rd birthday on April 25th. And my mother always tells me the story. Always. Well, I remember you were born, right? That whole beautiful thing. And then she'll say, we always worried about you succeeding in the world. And I said, you know what, Mom? I've always felt that.
Wow.
You never said it to me as a kid, but I always
Interesting.
felt it. Matter of fact, on my Dignify snapshot, one of my don'ts, and I keep it on there to this day, but I don't need it. But it was one of my do's was trust me with what I'm good at. And because of the journey I've been on of reflecting on life, and I had beautiful parents, that is on there from a childhood wound.
Wow.
Isn't that interesting? And not a deep one, not this terrible wound, but I always picked up on Joey's entertaining, Joey's lovely, but can he do stuff? and to their right, they'll tell you, like, I did the opposite of you. My brothers were outside painting the house. I was in with Mom making sandwiches for them.
Well,
Like,
you were
I
doing
would
the wrong thing then. That was the wrong role.
I was going to do anything I could to do hard labor, avoid it.
Okay.
So I'd use my charm and my wit, and I'd be like, okay, Mom, I'll help you with sandwiches. I'll make the lemonade, and let's do this thing where we keep bringing them water. And like, I was able to charm my way, not holding a paintbrush, and they'd just be like, Joey, here he goes again. You know what I mean?
But you know, even what you're holding on to, isn't that so true? We hold on to these negative, and we can perceive them. You know, when I went to kindergarten, it was a visit kindergarten day. I remember we had to do some things by ourselves at the desk so they could teach the kids for a while, the real kindergartners. And the principal came around and said, "You're cutting with the scissors backwards."
Oh, isn't that great?
And this is so typical.
Are you left-handed?
No, I still don't really
lefty.
even know.
You never could find the lefty scissors. They were always broken.
No, I wasn't left-handed.
Okay.
I honestly remember it so clearly, like, I don't even know what that means. Like, so it's like, I don't get it.
Was it upside down, your scissor? What is he trying to say?
I think that I was cutting and the line was not as visible, the line that I had to cut around.
Okay.
And so I needed to turn I don't even know. But I remember thinking, like, all those things and it's because really what she's saying is you're not living within the boundaries that we've set for you. Mm-hmm. You're not inside the box. And so from that, and I was 4 then, right? So it was before kindergarten. All these, but they stay with you. And hopefully you get good lessons from it. And I think for me, it was like, I don't even know where the box is.
Right.
I don't even know how to get inside of it. So I guess I'm just it's working for me, whatever. But those messages help define who you are.
Yes.
And hopefully you can kind of unlearn a lot of that. There's a lot of talk about unlearning nowadays. And
reprogramming.
Yeah.
Yeah. I had to reprogram things on money. A lot of people have money phobia. Like their parents never talked about money. It's probably not your case because you grew up in an entrepreneurial world. In our case, you were taught to save money and that it's better to be liked than rich. Okay, fine.
Interesting though.
So my mother would tell me stories, and I love my mom. Okay, I'm a mama's boy, but she would tell us stories about we did everything our rich friends did, and we did it on a budget. So like they all were in Door County in their condos.
Oh wow.
We had a campsite. They were on their yachts. We were on our Brady boat, the trial. And she's right. And everyone would come to us. Like she would put out the tablecloths and the cocktails and the campsite. They're smoking cigars, cigarettes back in the 70s. Like they were drinking their Manhattans. My mother would have a whole display and they would all come to us. And I remember them like, you're right. And, the Dorsches, who were Dorschford, and Don Schneider was my dad's best friend. And, all these wonderful, successful people. And my parents were successful in their own right, but they had this engine in their brain saying, we're conservative. We don't feel right spending that kind of money.
Oh, interesting.
Even if they could, right? It was a money program. And so I had to break that for me because I was holding our company back. And my coach said, you have a money program. I go, no, I don't. Yeah, what did your parents say about money? I'm like, they never talked about money. He goes, yeah, they did. Call me when it comes to you. And so now I'm telling these stories to you, right, with these money programs. He goes, oh, so you feel guilty making money and how that's going to look.
Interesting.
And I went, really? because my wife running the dollars, she goes, we're going up and down. Like, you have it, then we don't. Then we have it, then we don't. She goes, this is exhausting,
Yeah.
And then I rewrote the program. And it said, Joe Kiedinger accumulates vast wealth and helps the deserving. I'm working on the vast part. But that program, over and over, you have to rewrite it.
Yeah.
Because you don't realize what's in there.
Yeah. And again, it's a way of holding your good back.
Yes.
I mean, it's like you think it's a personal thing, but no, you're holding back the good that Joe Kiedinger can do by keeping yourself smaller. That's
right. I want to talk about one other big topic. These are awesome topics. You brought up something that made me go, the business versus humanity philosophy. I love that. So explain that to our audience.
So, like I said earlier, we compete against giants. That's something to think about. I got my MBA. I've read a lot about.
I want to pause real quick so that we hear that again. She competes against giants. So Cellcom is a cellular service, a company that sells what Verizon sells, what AT&T sells, and they're Wisconsin only. Is it Wisconsin only?
Wisconsin, Michigan.
Okay, Wisconsin, Michigan provider. So when she says we compete against giants, I just need to pause and make sure our audience knows that, because you can put your head around that like, whoa.
Yeah.
Okay.
David and Goliath right here. We believe in the David and Goliath story.
I love it. Okay. So now I wanted to make sure people get that.
Yeah. But I mean, to me, business has always been about love, but we're taught, the capital system is do things that make money, that entrepreneurial, that it's about making money. And that, to me, can really be a dichotomy against humanity. When I started my career, I worked in nonprofit, and it was great. You think about cause-related, and these are for causes. But I kind of felt like those places lacked heart. I mean, they were great places doing good stuff, but until I came to our business, I was like, this business gets it. This is about the humans. And
which business did you see?
Well, I worked at United Way, Fox Cities, and great people doing great work, by the way. And then I worked at the Payne Art Center and Museum, Gardens, which was awesome. But not until I got to this for-profit business did I see the heart. And I always talk to people about, we get the chance to do business differently. We actually get to care about our customers and about our employees. And, I end every letter with radiate love. I mean, to me, it's about love. And if sometimes, especially nowadays, so with the pandemic, and I mean, we're in a mental health crisis in general.
Yes.
I mean, it's just,
you're right.
And I talk to, and we're a technology company. But when you call Cellcom, somebody answers the phone, a human answers the phone.
See your commercials.
Yeah, and it's true.
They're great commercials.
When we first got into social media, it was funny. I get notices for our social media. So when people put stuff on our social media, we had, in the beginning days, we had this troll who was actually a high school student, the son of actually a prominent business leader.
Okay.
And he was just torturing us. And I'm like, I think you're supposed to be in school. But he would write hateful things, and it hurt. Because we take this business personally. And so I talk to our front lines. Sometimes the good that they do is listening to a person, giving them someone who is actually listening to them that day. Sometimes that's the only person that will listen to them that day. Sometimes if they're angry or something, they can end that conversation on a note where this person on the other end of the line says, I actually feel better about myself right now. That's how we change the world. Our company is not here to provide cellular service. It's here to change the world. That's the only thing we're here for. And I tell that to my kids all the time too, and it can be one person at a time. We're in a technology company where bots answer people's questions. No, we have humans behind everything that we do, and we always will. I think it's, I tell people, I think it's disrespectful when you call a company and you have to talk to a machine.
Yeah.
That's disrespecting you as a human.
That is, yes, I feel disrespected many times. Or just, it's cheaper. There are some even financial institutions that I've charged you for walking into our door.
Yeah.
A little fee. If you do it online, you'll save. I'm like, I want to talk to a person. Like, I want to literally put a deposit here.
And I think that there's, we have to meet people where they are. There's a lot of different ways, but don't pretend to be a human when you're not a human. Don't pretend these machines are human-like. And the business part says, you're not making a practical business decision. Those humans that you have in the room answering phone calls are very expensive. It's not the right way to do business.
Right.
It's not.
And how many humans do you have that answer phone calls?
Well, that answer phone calls, we have about 700 humans. The ones that answer, well, we all answer phone calls. Right. But we have, gosh, I can't even.
700.
Yeah. Yep.
That's a lot of humans.
It is. It's a lot of humans. And, one of the things that I remember my dad saying all the time, because I would challenge my parents about stuff all the time. And I'd say, Dad, why do you got to keep doing this? You're working so hard, you're working all the time. And he said, I have 40 families that count on me. I have 75 families that count on me. I have 700 that are counting on me to do the right thing. And I think I love what you talk about with your team and bringing them to their next level of best self. Mm-hmm. And that doesn't mean that they're going to stay with us forever.
Right.
Sometimes that means we get to wish you on your journey, and hopefully you learned something here, you gained something became better inside you that you can give to the world from here. And I just think that that's huge. That's the noble part of business if people choose it.
I knew I liked you. Our mission I shared with you, and I know people who follow us know this, our mission is to spread dignity to the world, and you are spreading dignity to your world. And if everyone just spreads dignity to their world, then the world, just their world.
Yep.
That's the mission. Mm-hmm. And we are kindred spirits, spreading dignity to the world in our own way.
Try the best we can, right? Every day.
Amen. This is Brighid Riordan. You've been wonderful. Thank you so much for sharing your wisdom. This is another Dignity Dialogue, and we will talk at you next month. See you, everyone.
This has been the Dignity Dialogue with Joe Kiedinger. Talk at you later.